All right, happy Friday, Dr. Wright. Another end of week conversation. A beautiful day today.
It's beautiful.
After it's rained for 2 days.
Beautiful.
But again, it's been a somewhat of a busy week. Last night, special called meeting. And the only item, the big piece on that was discussed and voted on was the fact that the portable units, that contract lease got ironed out. Just delve into a little bit about that. It was approved unanimously. So again, momentum still moving strong for the tornado damaged schools. However, to get the portable lease in place for Stoner Creek Elementary, just give us a little bit of an overview of what happened last night.
Well, first, we already had a scheduled work session, a board work session last night at 5 o'clock, at which we don't take any votes. And so because of the urgency of what was transpiring with some contractual agreements with a company that's going to construct 20 portable units, brand new, construct, and we had started in the Friday before as far as working out through the language. Our legal counsel had worked back with some language that had to be not only significant as far as in the state of Tennessee, because they're going to be constructed in Georgia, but there was also some maybe some nuances in the language that needed to be agreed upon. So with that, we needed approval from the board that once we received something, we could go ahead and move forward with a contract based on their approval, and giving us the allowance that our legal counsel was not only reading and correcting and editing, but once it was accepted by Vanguard, which is the company that's constructing, that we could go ahead and move forward without having to have an additional meeting, because the thing is, we want the units in place by mid-July.
And that was set on public record last night. Mid-July is the desired time. It was also mentioned that once these units roll off the assembly line, they may come in incremental pieces, five may arrive one day, four maybe another day. So correct me if I'm wrong, the way they would arrive would be like on an oversized truck that would come in. So this is not only a big operation from the assembly, but also the shipping them up here. And of course they will install. So if you're traveling along,
this is what they do.
In the coming months, if you're along northbound Juliet Road and you see more of these, you'll know exactly what's going on. They're going to be going to Stoner Creek's property to put those in and install
20
them.
units. Each unit will have a classroom. So 2 classrooms per unit, each self-contained with their own restroom facilities. And so again, they're brand new. So we're not putting something that's been used somewhere else and then transport to set up. So we're leasing them. We're not buying them. So they'll be returned in the lease agreements for 24 months.
Also, momentum going, pun intended, to start pushing our way towards the demo process.
Yes.
And I know that's something that a lot of people are just ready for from, I guess, an eyesore standpoint that it is as you go along North Mount Juliet.
I understand.
We have received a lot of comments on that, and rightfully so, over the past year. But now we have the pieces in place. Talk about the process to move forward for the demolition process. That'll get started on Monday night at the meeting, correct?
And we'd already started. Again, everything must go through the bid process as far as who. Not only the expertise, but also as far as that, when you look at insurance, everything that goes in with any process as far as whether it's the demolition or the construction. So Monday night will be key as far as looking at that bid process. Obviously, I think it was said last night that Stoner Creek will be the first to demo and will not take as long as it will with West Wilson. West Wilson, because there is a great deal of asbestos that's embedded. So I don't want anyone being alarmed that this was something, but many of our older buildings, as far as what was contained within the block and the brick. And so that will take a little more extensive work, but exciting, because once we bring the walls down, people will see the progress, because once we get down to the ground level, then we're looking at construction.
And just so that everyone is clear too, again, it is Stoner Creek will start going first, and then it will come out to West Wilson. The approximate, we don't want to box ourselves into exact dates, but around 14 months for construction for Stoner Creek. And around what kind of a month frame for West Wilson?
20 to 22 months.
Okay.
And
weather
again,
contingent and
weather can be our enemy. I mean, and to give an example, just in the construction of Green Hill High School, we had 135 weather event days. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
But we made it. But people need to understand that weather really can affect, as far as particularly until you get things enclosed, can really hurt us.
Also, last night it was mentioned. It was you brought it up, and hey, you had a nice meeting this week with high school principals, going back to a 4x4 block for next school year. That is where we're going, and I know it's been a lot of people are in favor of this.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen. Is that did I understand that correctly?
But I had to do a lot as far as discussing, as far as have to do a reminder, and it was a reminder with high school principals. We met on Wednesday of this week, and it was more than just talking about high school scheduling. But the block schedule is that what it is. It's a schedule. It's how you manage time. Has nothing to do with instruction or success of a high school. It just doesn't. It's how you manage time. And that's something that this district has been on for well over a decade. I have experience on the block, and I'm a proponent of the block schedule, dating back to 1992.
Let's stop right there. If you're new to Wilson County, explain exactly what the 4x4 block is. If you're going to have a student that will be in our high schools next year, next fall, what is a 4x4 block in Wilson County schools?
When you look at high school scheduling, you traditionally look at a day of multiple periods that will go year long. That's your traditional schedule. You'll see that anywhere in the country from 6 periods of, probably 60 minutes or more to an 8-period day that could run 45 to 50 minutes. It's a matter of all running a daily schedule all year long. A block schedule takes a school year and divides it into 2 semesters, which one semester would be the equivalent in time of a traditional school year.
Okay.
And so a student would take 4 classes a day as opposed to 7 classes a day, but only for 90 days instead of 180 days in a traditional schedule. The class period is longer. It can run anywhere from 75 to 90 minutes. A teacher will only be teaching 3 classes a day as opposed to, in a traditional schedule, 5 or 6 classes a day. And so it's a matter of time and the ability to also allow where a student might take 6 to 7 classes in a traditional schedule for a year. They have the ability of taking 8 classes over the course of a year for one semester, for another semester.
So you'll have a completely different schedule from the springtime.
It runs very much like a college schedule, quite frankly. And it's one that we have to make sure that it's understood that a student might have a math class in the fall, but might not see another math class until the following fall. So we have to really, and this is the thing that I really charge the principals, let's look really hard at these schedules so that we do not have a gap in instruction, because I'm not going to say that it was one that we sort of moved away from, but when we look at those master schedules, we need to look at, particularly in those 9th and 10th grade years, that whether it's a language, whether it's looking at mathematics, that we're not making it so far removed that we have Spanish 1 in the fall, but they don't see Spanish 2 until a year later.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of what I'll refer to as non-negotiables. Instruction first and foremost. I want to make sure that teachers go back and look at that professional development, that when you've got that much time, it's not about, as far as teacher in front of the class, as far as that kind of instruction, but looking at what kind of engagement is taking place, making the best use of that time. The other thing that happens with the block, that you're going to be looking at 2 periods of state testing, December and in May. This simply is because when you complete the courses that are state EOC courses, you're going to have to be tested, where in a traditional schedule it would have been the May testing. The other thing that we have to work around with a block, and let me premise this, there's about, right now it's 60% of the high schools in the state of Tennessee are under some kind of block schedule. Because it allows more opportunities for students. So when you look at AP classes, if you take an AP class in the fall, you're not going to take the AP exam until May, because that is a national testing date. We have no control over that. But there's things that we can do to make sure that even if you've completed the course in December, teachers can come back and do a review session at least a month before you actually sit for the test. And when I say a review session, what does an AP exam look like? What are you looking when you're looking at DBQs, whether document-based questions, whatever it might be, but really spend the time as far as preparing students and not ending a class just because it ended in December. So non-negotiables, the principals, I don't want to say they were ambivalent either way, but I had to remind them that with the decisions that were made last year in balancing a budget, the block takes more teachers because you're creating more sections. We also opened a new high school. And so we were really in a, a tenuous situation as far as how do we get there, because with the additional positions that we were going to need, was going to equate to nearly $2.5 million. So last year was a very critical budget year. Going into this year, due to growth, we had the staff there, and the thing is that, as I shared with the board last night, existing staff, not new hires, existing staff would more or less be used to be able to move and transition into the block for next year. And principals gave assurances. In fact, when we started looking at adjustments, Green Hill High School has to hire the additional teachers that they were not able to hire last year, be able to move forward with that, and then looking at that adjustment. But again, it caused a lot of heartache originally with a lot of misinformation about the block, and particularly the idea that our success in our high schools was contingent on being on the block schedule, and simply not the case. It's good instruction with high quality teachers, which we have, but it wasn't about how they were scheduling their time.
And people may be watching and say, well, Dr. Wright, that sounds wonderful and great, but you're going to be leaving us in June. So will Mr. Luttrell have your same line of thinking?
Yes, he was in the meeting.
Okay.
He was in the meeting, and I called on him in the meeting. And he's also a former high school principal, so I mean, it's not something that would have been foreign to him. He, scheduled a high school, Watertown High School, under the block, but he was also bringing in part of the conversation as well, as far as the things that that he knew also as a high school principal that we have to be aware of. And again, we've got to make sure that every classroom every day is engaging for every student, and that's dependent on the teacher.
So he's fully on board with it.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
All right, as we look towards next week, Monday, our third and final asynchronous learning day.
Yes.
I mean, asynchronous learning days. That was a 3-word phrase we just weren't really familiar with prior to the before the pandemic era started. But Monday's our last one. It gives explain to our parents and those who may be watching exactly what the asynchronous learning day is there for with this go round. The other two were largely spent on our vaccination dates. This third one coming up on Monday is there in place, and just inform our parents on why that is going to take place on Monday.
Well, and when we were sitting and scheduled, because originally even with the vaccination days, those were scheduled for different days, but we worked to accommodate so we could make sure that the majority of our staff would be able to access March the 5th and March 26th on getting their vaccinations. And so the third day, which was originally as scheduled, May the 3rd, we left intact. And so it becomes an administrative day in a sense for our teachers and any faculty members, as far as looking that plan ahead as we start looking at the finish line. And we're, the thing that we said all along is finish strong. But it's also as a reminder to parents and students too, that on those asynchronous days that you're looking at pre-prescribed as far as lessons, it's a day of learning, but it's at home. And so that will wrap up the last one that we had previously scheduled, but it'll also be a day of collaboration and learning for our teachers as well as they wrap up the year.
Yeah, it is. You said the finish line. Today is the last day of April, and so we move into May with a vengeance. It's just got here in a hurry, and of course Monday.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the students will not report to schools, but it is considered an instructional learning day. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your teachers. But they have those expectations in place for Monday, and that goes across all grade bands. As we enter May, it's the final push. We do have a few days in June for our official school calendar year. But May is the meat to really finish it off, and it will come and go quickly. We hear that proms have gone well so far.
Oh, yes,
graduations are upcoming.
Yeah.
So it is. May is always a good month, and we want to finish strong, do the right things, and stay healthy. But a special time of year, May is.
A special time of year, and even though when we look back this very extraordinary year, extraordinary circumstances, I can't say enough as far as how we've all pulled together. Whether it's the classroom teacher, whether it's looking at school administration, but also our families. Over 19,000 students that in some capacity of learning. It's been an amazing year as well, and a lot of lessons learned, and stronger and better.
I don't know that there's ever been a year, of course you would know much better than I, with your your service to education for several years.
You said that well.
Yeah, I got in trouble last time, so I tried to phrase that a little bit well for your service to over the years. But I don't know that there's ever been a year where you've been able to learn so much and think about things that maybe weren't really thought of before. A year of creativity to try to get things done from a classroom standpoint. I know in my case, from a communication standpoint, and in your shoes, from a director's standpoint, I don't know that. And it doesn't matter what you do in any profession. I think we've all learned so much about how to deal with some pretty tough circumstances over the past year. There's no question about that.
Well, I've moved from what I referred to originally as the dreadful times to really extraordinary times. We've seen some of the very best come out in people that maybe might not have had the opportunity. It was there all along. We've also seen how resilient people are, and also how compassionate, even with all the chatter that's been in the background that might, have been overwhelming. I'm thankful, thankful because again, whether you're looking at the tornado, you're looking at the pandemic, things could have been far worse, and we've learned a lot. We'll continue to learn, and when I think moving forward, particularly next year, lessons that we learn, particularly for those youngsters that been through a lot, they're going to be okay. And I attribute that to our teachers. And
we have some amazing teachers.
Oh my goodness. They work magic every day, and I'll always refer to it as the pixie dust in both pockets. And I've seen teachers that aren't even aware of the magic and what they have contributed to the lives of their children, and not even their personal children, their children in the classroom. And I always say it's whether they're 5 or 18. Our teachers have done some amazing things this year, and some of it at their own personal expense. And when I say personal expense, it's not always that. It's not about the dollars. It's about what they've contributed, because they've had to dig deep to find ways to either
their time, their sacrifice away from their not spending as much time with their families as
working from remote,
right.
Working in a classroom, and people failed to understand that they were doing really 2 jobs where the year before was one, but having to master both, and they did it.
What a year.
What a year.
Well, we will certainly catch up again next week. We hope everyone has a great weekend. Weather-wise, hopefully it plays out. I think Saturday's supposed to be a pretty good day.
Yeah.
So, but enjoy, be safe, be healthy. You have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Okay.